Hello, my name is Andrew Beckton, and I am a teacher at Palestine ISD. In this presentation, we're going to be having a look at the community power structures that exist within my school district, as well as the communication action plans that we can take to address certain target audiences within those community power structures. So here we go. My school district is located in a very small rural community where influence is pretty much shaped less by formal organizational charts and more by long-standing relationships and tradition. While official leadership roles do exist, much of the true power operates informally behind the scenes. It's almost I hate to call it a buddy system, but it can sort of feel that way at times. These dynamics do affect how decisions are made and how initiatives are received, and again, which voices are amplified or ignored. And so, for administrators, understanding this reality is just as important as understanding policy or instructional leadership. Again, community power structures directly influence the public trust, district momentum, the success of school initiatives. And so, without an awareness of these forces, even strong leadership decisions can face resistance. So, we really have to know our audience. Within this power structure, particularly in my area, there are two primary stakeholder groups that hold the greatest influence. And I would say that would be our local political leaders and a select group of families, or I could just say parents even. These groups do not operate independently. Rather, they often overlap socially, professionally, ideologically. This overlap does strengthen their collective influence and their ability to shape district priorities. And so decisions that are related to funding, policy, and district direction are often filtered through the perspectives of these particular stakeholders. Their influence does extend beyond formal meetings into informal conversations and community spaces. Again, this is a small town, so you're going to cross paths with a lot of these people. So understanding who these groups are and how they interact is essential for effective leadership. So how is this power used? Well, the political power in this community is most often exercised through financial influence and public advocacy. Local leaders do play a key role in passing school bonds. In fact, we just saw that recently. Securing funding and shaping public perception. They frequently leverage relationships with churches, again, we're in the Bible Belt here, and businesses to gain both financial backing and public endorsement. So, fundraisers, community events, coordinated messaging are common strategies to use to rally support. Without their involvement, many initiatives would face significant obstacles. So their influence does demonstrate how financial and social capital do intersect in the school government, really. So we do have unrepresented stakeholders within our district. And again, while it's important to identify who holds the power, it is just as equally important to recognize who does not. And so in our district, the Hispanic community remains significantly unrepresented in leadership and governance roles, which is really interesting because we have roughly 45% Hispanic population, student population in our demographics. I think the next closest is white, and that's less than 30%. So that is a gross misrepresentation. Hispanic parents and community members have minimal presence on the school board, the city council, or within influential parent groups. And so this lack of representation does limit their ability to influence decisions that affect their children. Over time, this can lead to a disengagement and possibly mistrust. So recognizing this imbalance is a critical first step towards equity within our district. Um, some of the leadership takeaways here, for both new and experienced administrators. First of all, understanding the district's power structure is essential. While engaging existing power groups is necessary for progress, expanding inclusion is critical for long term growth. Leadership requires amplifying those unrepresented voices, especially as I mentioned, the Hispanic population in our district, as well as building broader community partnerships. And so, true success comes when decision making reflects the diversity of the student population. So, by addressing both strengths and weaknesses within the power structure, districts can move forward and, toward more equitable and sustainable outcomes. So now that we kind of have an idea of, I hate to say the small town politics, but more or less the small town politics, we can kind of come up with a communication action plan, which allows us to, again, target particular stakeholders and come up with a good plan of communicating our goals, our visions, our needs. And so we're going to be exploring some of those. So let's have a look at some of the targeted stakeholders for communication, particularly in my town. It would be, as mentioned earlier, politicians and community leaders, um, parent action teams, and of course, we cannot forget those underrepresented parents from other groups, again, such as our Hispanic population. Of course, with our groups, our types of communication that we're going to use for our targeted stakeholders. So that would be things like community relations and outreach, social media, and online relations, as well as a district newsletter. So we're going to be discussing these a little bit deeper, kind of take a deep dive. We're going to be talking about really the purpose of each of these types of communication, the means in which we plan to communicate them, as well as how often or the frequency of such communication methods. So here we go. Okay, so the first type or method, which is our community relations and outreach. The purpose, of course, is to increase public relations. I think that has to be priority. We have to strengthen the support for the district and for for the programs that the district is responsible for, the events that the district is responsible for, and this allows us to just draw the community in. The means of communication would be, working with politicians, community groups, organizations, businesses, churches as well, to plan fundraisers or events for district support. Also, we would include local volunteer organizations in our after school or weekend programs. Currently, we actually have a church that helps out with that, so that's a really big help. So, how often should we communicate uh, this? Well, there's a few ways to approach it. You know, Bi-monthly, the campus principals should reach out by means of phone or email or face-to-face meetings to a designated member of the community or whatever organization to either review current plans for an event or to help engage support for a new event. Um, if we were to, scale it back or really even actually go closer, we could call it monthly. So maybe on a monthly basis, the district, specified community liaison could meet with um, campus principals to discuss after school or weekend events that are being sponsored or funded or supported by local organizations or community members. Um, these events should include engagement opportunities for all students and parents of every demographic background and grade level. So making sure that whatever it is we're discussing with our community people, it's going to reach as many members, as many stakeholders as we possibly can with whatever initiatives these may be. The second method that we discussed was social media and online relations. So again, just kind of going over our purpose, our means of communication, our frequency. When we talk about the purpose, of course, we want to use social media um, and our district website as a means to enhance the district's image and to celebrate district accomplishments. It seems to be kind of the quickest way to get information out there. So this means of communication would, take form of updating our district Facebook page and our district website with important information regarding district news, upcoming events, student staff celebrations, recognition for whatever accomplishments have occurred. It's also going to train teachers on how to use the teacher webpage portion of the district webpage and encourage updates on classroom accomplishments and news. Maybe an update every grading period, just letting parents know this is what we're going to be learning about. These are the units we're going to cover. Just kind of gives them a kind of a peep into what we do in the class. Also, of course, we want to provide local media outlets such as the news station and newspaper about district news and celebrations so that we can recognize those things. When it comes to the frequency and how often to communicate, the district media specialist should update the district Facebook page at least once a day with pictures, celebrations, news, or campus happenings. Each principal should designate a member of staff on each campus to update the campus portion of the district website at least, once per week at a minimum with updated events, news, happenings. And of course, the district will acquire resources that will allow for the training of teachers on how to update their class web pages. The campus principal will require teachers to update their teacher web page portion of the district website at least twice per grading period. That would be per quarter in our district. Any important district or campus information will be presented on the district website, both in English and in Spanish. So again, we're really trying to work on our underrepresented represented groups within our district. Lastly, talking about our third method, that would be, of course, our district newsletter. The purpose of this communication, of course, is to use a student-created district newsletter to involve students in the district's celebrations and news, and to communicate that information along with the district's vision and goals to parents, students, employees, and the community. The means of this would be to send out an electronic district newsletter weekly to students, parents, staff members, community members, organizations, and local news outlets that highlights weekly celebrations and accomplishments, as well as provides upcoming news and events. And we want to incorporate this newsletter into the media elective classes and allow for student creation of the newspaper with campus principal approval, of course, before it's sent out. We got to make sure that this thing is appropriate. Of course, how often, what's going to be the frequency of this? We're going to have the high school CT director will supervise the student creation of a district newsletter that will be emailed to all students, parents, staff, and community leaders and the organizations at least once per week. And this email will contain both an English and Spanish version of the newsletter. The campus principal will proofread these newsletters before they are emailed each week, as mentioned earlier. In closing, while community power structures will always exist, and that's just a given, they should never overshadow the needs of our students. So by implementing a communication plan that prioritizes clarity, inclusiveness, and active listening, Administrators can ensure that student success remains the central focus of every decision. So, when students are at the center, community voices, um, they do become partners rather than obstacles. So that's the big takeaway here. Thank you for listening and for your time.